my name's Kathy Cassidy and I'm helping to organise and judge the Coventry Couch Potato competition during lockdown. And so this is kind of a little reminder, you can send in up to 3 entries, but you must get your entries in by the end of May, so you need to get skates on there. I wanted also to say that a lot of my readers are always saying, you know, have you got any tips for writing? This video is for you as well, but certainly the organisers of Coventry Couch Potato asked if I could give any tips or hints to anybody wanting to enter. So here we go. I hope it helps you. A little bit about me. I grew up in Coventry, addicted to reading, and as a teenager the thing I loved reading the most was the legendary Jackie magazine, one of the first British teen mags. And from the age of about 12 onwards I would be sending my short stories to Jackie magazine in the hope that they might take pity on me and publish something. I remember borrowing my dad's old manual typewriter, which he used to do the invoices for his car repair business, and I used that to type my stories out, and I probably sent off about one a week from the age of 12 all the way through to when I was 16 or 17. And I must have had hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of rejection letters over the years. Very, very nice letters. They used to say things like, "Dear Kathy, very sorry, your story is not suitable for Jackie magazine, but if you have any other stories, we would love to see them." And that little kind of possibility that things might be different the next time around kept me going. But also it was fantastic to have an aim. It was fantastic to have something to kind of tailor my stories towards, to focus on. The idea of maybe possibly getting published one day was fantastic and a really good motivation, I think. And that's what Coventry Couch Potato can be for you as well, because whatever your age, this could be your chance to get your work into print. So that's pretty awesome. So yeah, the irony about me sending my stories off to Jackie magazine was that later on, when I think I was about 21, I went to art college after school, and then when I was looking around for my first job, age 21, I wrote a letter to the officers of Jackie magazine and was interviewed a few times and given a job as office junior on the magazine. I'd plagued and pestered with stories all the way through my teens, so a great irony there. And obviously I did have to start at the bottom. I would be making the coffee and answering the phone, but I worked my way up until I actually became the fiction editor, and that was the best training possible, I think, for anybody wanting to write for young teens or pre-teens, because, I don't know, it just taught me that a really, really important lesson. You need to grab your reader, probably with the first sentence, certainly with the first paragraph. You need to make them want to keep reading, hook them in, and don't let them go until the end. So that really important lesson is something I want all of you to take on as well. You have to keep your reader hooked. If they put that story down, go and do something more interesting, you've lost them, and that's fatal, I think, for a story. So I am talking for the Couch Potato entrants at any rate. Some of you will be primary school age, some of you will be secondary school age, and lots of you will not be of school age at all anymore. Clearly I'm not. So yeah, I'm not going to pretend, not for 1 minute, that I'm your English teacher. I'm coming at this from a completely different angle. I'm not interested in teaching you spelling or grammar. I'm not interested in rules particularly. What I want is to have your feelings in poem form, in story form. I'm looking for the imagination, originality. I'm looking for the feeling in what you're writing. But you do need an idea before you get going. Where do ideas come from? Probably the most frequently asked question, but I actually find that ideas are never really in short supply. They're in things that you see, things you hear, things you remember or imagine. New experiences are fantastic kind of source of ideas and inspiration, but of course new experiences are kind of in short supply at the moment. So that shouldn't stop you. You've got all of your memories and all of your imagination to help you in this case, and lockdown in itself is a new experience for all of us, I think. So you can use that as a jumping off point. When I have my little nugget of an idea, the thing that I do next is daydream. Daydreaming, you could call it by its more fancy name, creative visualization, but it's that kind of wafty stage between logical thinking, conscious, hard-working thinking, where you're controlling and steering your mind, and that stage where there is absolutely, where your mind is completely empty, meditation, or maybe even sleep. You want that in-between bit where drifty thoughts can come and go and magical connections can be made. So I will carry my little bit of inspiration around for a few days, for a few weeks. Sometimes it's months if I'm working on a novel. And I just daydream whenever I can about that theme, about that idea, about that character, and see what happens. And if you're lucky, an idea for a story or a poem will take hold, and you will kind of, if you do it really, really well, you pretty much have no choice but to write it down. So hopefully try that daydreaming technique and maybe it will work for you. You need to also decide, should it be a poem or a story? At the moment, we've got a lot of poetry been sent in. I think a lot of people assume that a poem is easier and quicker, and that's not necessarily the case. A poem may be short, but it has to really pack a punch. A poem need not rhyme, and I do feel quite strongly about this. I would rather a poem didn't rhyme at all than that it had very cheesy or contrived or clumsy, clunky rhymes. So try to look instead at how you might separate the lines up in an interesting way to emphasize certain words or ideas. Poem can be a hotline to your feelings. It works really, really well for that. And so it could be ideal for getting your feelings about lockdown out. Focus on one aspect, or one or two aspects maybe, of the lockdown, and explore those, because a poem is really not the place to have some sort of big forensic report about what lockdown is like. You kind of it has to come from the heart. It has to come from you. We don't want to know necessarily about every single daily challenge of lockdown. Keep your poem focused and strong, and it's fine to start from your feelings, and then you can play around with words and images and structure until you've got something that you're really happy with and pleased with. So what if you decide to do a story? Well, for a start, it's got to be under 1,000 words, and that means you really have to keep it pretty focused, just as you would if it were a poem. One simple, strong idea is what you need for a short story. If you're weaving in too many ideas and subplots, you're going to confuse the reader. You'll lose your focus. This is not a novel. There isn't room for all of those nuances. It's a short story, and it has every single word has to kind of earn its keep in a short story. The basic structure is there's a beginning, a middle, and an end. The beginning and the end are really important because they have to hold a lot of power. They have to be really strong. If you can add a twist or a surprise to your ending, that can really raise the story from average to brilliant. And think about too what kind of genre your story should be. It could be a mystery or a romance, a crime story. It could be a horror or a thriller, a comedy, something real life. It's totally up to you. What is important is that you write from the heart. You want the reader to be gripped and engage. You don't want them to put that story down, wander off and find something more interesting to do. What is going to grab them? What is going to move them, make them care about your plot and your character? Probably the same things that move you and that the same things that you care about. So think about that when you're kind of weaving those themes in. It might be things like freedom, struggle, heroism. It could be overcoming challenges, which I think all of us are doing at the moment. It could be something quite simple like love or friendship. It could be justice. It could be all sorts of other things. Make your own list and think about what your characters are going to face in their story. And then you need to really consider, how do you start? Do not start with a long, wordy description of your character and their appearance, their personality, and their backstory, basically because you just don't have time in 1,000 words to do all that. And besides, too much of it is going to send your reader to sleep. You can seed in little nuggets of backstory as you go along, as long as they're relevant to the story, as long as they fit the plot and feel natural. So show, don't tell is quite a good kind of idea to keep in mind. If you're not starting with description, then what do you start with? My advice is take your character and drop them into a dramatic, dangerous, emotional, or otherwise gripping situation, and then take them through it. Hook the reader, pull them along through the story. Keep them reading. And how do you end your story? Well, you've got to tie up the loose ends, of course, and remember that twist or surprise that we were talking about. A strong last sentence is every bit as essential as a strong first one. Your aim is to leave the reader feeling satisfied and happy, or if not happy exactly, then maybe stunned or wowed or chilled, or whatever it is that fits with your theme and your genre. Leave the ending simple and strong, and aim for subtle rather than overwork. Just keep it simple, and it will retain its power. Finally, you do need to edit your story before you send it in. At school, your teacher will be asking you to do this, to tidy up your work, and a writer does the same thing. You have to check for any plot threads that you didn't follow up and remove them. Check for cliches and cheesy imagery or awkward similes and metaphors. This is not a school exercise to showcase your understanding of grammar devices. So if something feels contrived or awkward, take it out. If in doubt, take it out. Equally, look for overworked descriptions. If you find yourself sidetracked by elaborate adjectives, you've probably literally lost the plot. So keep your writing simple, clean, direct, and straight from the heart. Read through one last time to check that your story flows. Maybe read it out loud. And that's one really good tip for making sure that awkward phrasing can be found, because it'll jump out at you if you read it out loud, and sort it out. Finally, check for spelling and grammar, but be aware that what I'm looking for is, in this challenge, is not spelling or grammar. It's a strong, gripping, imaginative and original story. My very best tips in a nutshell: read lots, because you kind of absorb and learn by osmosis, almost by magic. If you're reading a lot, you kind of absorb all of the things that the author you're reading is doing. Write lots. And that means in your own free time, because you want to. So write the things you want to write. Write from the heart, because it's going to show in what you do. And write about the things that really matter to you. And last but not least, very best of luck in the Couch Potato Challenge, or in whatever it is that you happen to be doing. And writing is not just about, it's not a competition, it's not a challenge, it's not a contest. It should be something you love to do for yourself, but this can be a fantastic springboard to getting to that point. So good luck, and I really look forward to seeing your entries soon.